illusions, through nights spent in solitude that shaped introspection, and through failures that demanded reinvention. While most seek validation from the crowd, the Sigma seeks clarity in silence. His power lies not in outward bravado, but in inner mastery. He doesn't erupt when tested. Instead, he studies, he adapts, and then he strikes, precise, calculated, and irreversible. Psychologically, this type of man aligns with high levels of emotional intelligence and self-reliance, a trait linked to introverted leadership styles noted in studies from Harvard Business Review. People often confuse his detachment with apathy, but the truth is more dangerous. His stillness is strategic. Cross him and you won't just lose access to his presence. You'll lose someone who saw 10 steps ahead, someone whose loyalty ran deeper than surface-level affection. The Sigma doesn't broadcast his worth, it is felt in his absence. He turns wounds into wisdom, setbacks into fuel, and silence into strategy. Think of Bruce Wayne before the cape, training in shadows, becoming something the world wasn't ready for. That's the Sigma archetype. He doesn't avoid pain, he partners with it, allowing it to sculpt his discipline and deepen his perception. While others are reactive, he is responsive, emotionally controlled, focused, and unrelenting. So when the world sees stillness, he's building momentum. When they assume surrender, he's sharpening his edge. If you relate to this, if you've ever felt like the storm within you is waiting for the right moment, then you're not lost. You're just gathering force. The Sigma path is quiet, but not empty. It's the calm before the reckoning. Are you ready to step into that storm? Then let's begin. Number 1, he doesn't react, he removes. Most people in today's social world are addicted to emotional feedback. They test boundaries, provoke reactions, and thrive on drama because to them, any attention, positive or negative, is validation. They poke, prod, and stir emotions just to see if you'll flinch, explode, or beg for peace. But the Sigma male operates on a completely different wavelength. He doesn't engage in emotional tug-of-wars because he's mastered the art of emotional detachment. When crossed, insulted, or manipulated, he doesn't shout or argue. He simply disconnects, silently and deliberately. This disconnection isn't fueled by rage or ego, but by cold, calculated self-respect. His silence isn't passive, it's a strategic move that speaks louder than confrontation ever could. Research in behavioral psychology shows that withholding a response in social situations often unsettles others more than any reaction. That's because the human brain is wired to seek patterns and closure. And when a Sigma removes himself without warning or explanation, it creates a cognitive vacuum. People who once had access to him begin to feel that emptiness, and it echoes. There's no dramatic exit, no emotional explosion, just absence. And in that absence, the Sigma's value is felt. His presence, once taken for granted, becomes hauntingly loud in its disappearance. The void he leaves behind isn't just personal, it's psychological. Unlike most who crave closure, the Sigma understands that walking away without a word can deliver the strongest message of all. This is not ghosting out of immaturity, but detaching out of mastery. He chooses his peace over pointless battles. He understands that some wars are best won by refusing to fight. In a world addicted to noise, his silence is power. His disappearance is the consequence. And for those who once tried to manipulate him, that quiet void is often the loudest lesson they'll ever learn. Number 2, he weaponizes distance. You try to hurt him, he disappears. Not because he's scared, but because he understands one powerful truth. Silence is the most devastating response to manipulation. This man, often referred to in psychology as emotionally self-regulating, or in pop culture as a Sigma male, doesn't play the typical emotional tug-of-war. When others try to provoke, guilt-trip, or bait him into chaos, he doesn't argue, explode, or beg. He vanishes. Not as an act of escape, but as a calculated withdrawal. Why? Because manipulators feed on reactions. They thrive on drama, emotional energy, and attention. Psychologists refer to this as narcissistic supply, where manipulators derive validation from their ability to control and evoke responses. By giving them nothing, no texts, no explanations, no confrontation, he starves their ego and strips them of power. Silence becomes a weapon, and absence turns into a mirror. That empty space he creates forces the manipulator to sit with themselves, to face their own insecurity and dysfunction without a scapegoat. The quiet echoes louder than any argument could, revealing the futility of their games. It's not passive aggressiveness, it's emotional mastery. It takes tremendous discipline to walk away without needing to be understood or vindicated. In doing so, he reclaims his peace and protects his energy. His silence isn't weakness, it's strategy. It's a refusal to validate toxicity, and for those who tried to control him, the most painful realization isn't his absence, it's the reflection of their own brokenness left behind in the silence. This is the psychological art of detachment, and it's far more powerful than any confrontation. Number 3, he sees the pattern before you act. The Sigma male isn't just watching, he's calculating. Long before you make your move, he's read between the lines, spotted the hesitation in your voice, tracked the inconsistencies in your behavior, and timed your sudden interest with surgical precision. You might think you're being subtle, but to a Sigma, human behavior is a map, and he's memorized every route people tend to take, especially the ones that lead to manipulation, betrayal, or control. While most people respond reactively, the Sigma is proactive, always 10 steps ahead. It's not about paranoia, it's about pattern recognition, a skill deeply tied to emotional intelligence and observational mastery. Studies in behavioral psychology confirm that highly perceptive individuals often notice micro-expressions and subtle shifts in tone and posture, clues that betray true intentions. The Sigma male uses these cues like chess pieces, anticipating your next move before you even make it. This is what makes him so elusive and hard to fool. By the time you think you've gained his trust, he's already created distance, set boundaries, or entirely removed your influence from his world. There's no dramatic exit, no confrontation, just a silent repositioning of the board while you're still playing checkers. That's the unnerving power of the Sigma. He doesn't wait to be betrayed, he predicts it, prepares for it, and makes sure it never lands. And when you realize you've been locked out, you won't hear a door slam or see a message left behind. You'll just notice his absence, and the void will be deafening. So the next time you think you're outsmarting a Sigma, remember, he's not reacting to your moves, he's already moved beyond them. Number 4, you reveal more about yourself than you harm him. Every attempt to hurt a Sigma male is less of an attack and more of a confession, an unintentional revelation of the attacker's own insecurity, control issues, and emotional dependency. The Sigma operates on a different frequency than most people. He's not wired to seek validation or engage in emotional tug-of-wars, so when someone lashes out at him, whether through manipulation, gossip, or passive aggression, it's rarely about him, it's about them. It's a spotlight on their own inner chaos. They crave a reaction because it validates their presence, their power, and their control. But the Sigma doesn't give them that luxury. He doesn't retaliate, doesn't chase explanations, and certainly doesn't entertain drama. Instead, he stands still, calm, detached, and unbothered. This psychological stillness acts like a mirror. The more you try to provoke him, the more your own issues surface. That silence, it's not weakness, it's strategic. Psychology backs this up. Studies on emotional intelligence and self-regulation show that those who remain non-reactive in tense situations often have higher cognitive control and inner stability. Sigmas use this silence as a weapon, not to attack, but to reflect. He knows that overreaction is often the tool of the weak, and so he lets others reveal themselves while he remains grounded. His power lies in his refusal to be pulled into emotional chaos. When someone's attempt to wound him fails, it backfires. They're left exposed, vulnerable, and perhaps for the first time, forced to face their own shadows. The Sigma doesn't need revenge. Your weakness does the work for him. In a world where attention is currency, ignoring someone is the most brutal form of power. The Sigma knows this, and he uses it masterfully. Number 5, he's already chosen solitude. You can't isolate someone who chooses isolation. That's the paradox of the Sigma male. The lone wolf who doesn't just endure solitude, he thrives in it. While society often uses silence, exclusion, or public embarrassment to control or manipulate, the Sigma male has already made peace with the quiet. He walks alone not because he's rejected, but because he rejected the need to be accepted. When others try to exile him, thinking they're punishing him, they unknowingly hand him the very conditions he's most dangerous in: solitude, space, and silence. In history and mythology, some of the most powerful figures, like Jesus in the wilderness, Buddha under the Bodhi tree, or even the great Stoics like Marcus Aurelius, found their strength away from the crowd. The Sigma male is cut from the same cloth. When you try to shame him, he doesn't defend himself or seek validation. He simply disappears, slips into the shadows, and becomes untouchable. You can't destroy someone who doesn't cling to image, applause, or attention. That's why attempts to control or manipulate such men often backfire. A man who isn't afraid to be forgotten is immune to emotional blackmail. He draws his power not from popularity or approval, but from clarity, independence, and self-mastery. While most people fear isolation, he turns it into innovation. While others need a tribe, he builds a temple in the wilderness. The Sigma male doesn't resist the game, he walks off the field, and that's what makes him so formidable. Society loses all leverage when it comes up against a man who doesn't need it, because you can't break what you can't hold, and you can't control a man who doesn't fear being alone. Number 6, pain fuels his evolution. The Sigma male doesn't flinch at discomfort, he investigates it. Where most people retreat from pain, he leans in, not because he enjoys suffering, but because he understands what it truly is: information. Pain, whether emotional or physical, is not a punishment. It's a signal, a data point, a message from reality that something needs to be acknowledged, adjusted, or mastered. While others drown in self-pity or lash out to escape discomfort, the Sigma male internalizes it, analyzes it, and turns it into strategy. He's the type of man who, when betrayed or defeated, doesn't scream or beg. He observes. He silently upgrades. Psychologically, this trait aligns with a concept known as post-traumatic growth, where instead of being crushed by adversity, individuals become more resilient, insightful, and capable because of it. The Sigma doesn't just survive setbacks, he weaponizes them. Every heartbreak sharpens his emotional discernment. Every failure improves his calibration. Every disappointment strengthens his solitude. And the most fascinating part, the world rarely sees the transformation happening. That's the mystery of the Sigma. He doesn't broadcast his evolution. You thought you wounded him, but you only gave him raw material for his rebirth. He becomes more efficient, more composed, and more elusive. It's like trying to break a sword by throwing it into fire, only to watch it come out reforged, stronger than before. In a world obsessed with external validation, the Sigma male is driven by internal metrics. He measures progress by growth, not applause. And so discomfort is no longer a threat. It's a forge. You didn't break him. You just made him more dangerous, more disciplined, and infinitely harder to reach. Because to the Sigma, every scar is just another upgrade in his silent evolution. Number 7, he builds in silence. While you're busy celebrating a minor victory, taking selfies, sharing updates, and enjoying the temporary spotlight, the Sigma male is quietly building an empire. There are no drum rolls, no public declarations, no flashy previews of what's to come. Instead, he operates like a silent architect, focused, disciplined, and determined. His energy isn't wasted on proving anything to the world, it's poured entirely into the mission. This type of mindset echoes the psychological concept of delayed gratification, made famous by the Stanford marshmallow experiment, which proved that those who wait for a greater reward often succeed more in life. The Sigma male embodies this perfectly. He doesn't need applause, he needs results. While others crave validation, he craves mastery. He studies when others are sleeping, he trains when others are partying, and he plans 5 steps ahead while others are celebrating step 1. There's something deeply powerful about a man who moves in silence, because it creates unpredictability, a trait often linked to strategic minds throughout history, from Sun Tzu to Nikola Tesla. And by the time the world finally notices what he's built, it's already too late. You've been outpaced, outclassed, and, perhaps most painful of all, forgotten. That's the Sigma's quiet revenge. Not in confrontation, but in evolution. He turns rejection into rocket fuel, doubt into direction, and setbacks into stepping stones. While others broadcast their hustle, he just hustles. And when his moment comes, he doesn't need to say, "I told you so." His results speak for themselves. Number 8, he doesn't play social games, he outgrows them. You think you're competing, but the Sigma male, he's not even in the arena. While others scramble for recognition, validation, and dominance in the social hierarchy, the Sigma operates on an entirely different frequency, one that doesn't need an audience. He's not trying to win a popularity contest. He's pursuing something far more valuable: freedom. Freedom from societal expectations, freedom from peer pressure, and freedom from the exhausting cycle of performance and approval. In a world obsessed with likes, shares, and fleeting status, the Sigma is practically immune. That's not arrogance, it's clarity. Studies in social psychology suggest that humans are naturally wired for group belonging and status-seeking behavior. But Sigmas deviate from this script. They're often introverted, highly introspective, and driven by intrinsic goals. They value autonomy over attention and purpose over popularity. When others are busy aligning with trends to gain influence, the Sigma leans deeper into his craft, developing rare skills, mastering silence, and building a life that doesn't require applause to feel fulfilled. So when the spotlight dims and social power inevitably shifts, many find themselves scrambling for relevance. But the Sigma, he thrives in the shadows. His self-sufficiency, built in solitude and reinforced through independence, only grows stronger. The game everyone else is playing doesn't interest him because he's building his own world. One brick of discipline and self-awareness at a time. And while the crowd fights for trophies that tarnish, the Sigma forges a legacy that endures. Number 9, he turns the cut into a scar that strengthens. Every betrayal, every act of deception is logged, not for vengeance, but for wisdom. For the Sigma male, pain is not a prison, but a professor. Rather than internalize betrayal as shame or fuel for revenge, he treats it like intelligence, deconstructing what went wrong, where trust was misplaced, and which red flags he missed. It's a psychological autopsy, not a pity party. This process mirrors how the brain, through neuroplasticity, rewires itself after trauma, strengthening emotional circuits through analysis and adaptation. Solitude enhances this further, allowing the Sigma to refine his instincts and elevate his pattern recognition, skills often tied to high emotional intelligence and self-awareness. So when betrayal reappears in a new disguise, he's already mapped its tactics. Those who tried to break him only ended up fine-tuning his defenses. His growth is quiet but seismic. The lesson is absorbed, the upgrade is complete, and the gate is locked. He doesn't get bitter, he gets better. Number 10. Your influence diminishes the moment he sees through you. Once the Sigma male sees your true intention, especially if it's rooted in manipulation, control, or hidden agendas, something irreversible happens. It's not a loud argument or dramatic exit. It's quiet, clean, absolute. His perception of you changes in an instant, and with it, your influence over him vanishes. The Sigma doesn't waste time trying to fix people who played him. Instead, he withdraws, emotionally, mentally, spiritually. He doesn't block you to prove a point. He simply stops listening, stops trusting, stops caring. And that subtle shift is more powerful than rage. You're no longer someone he's trying to build with. You become someone he forgets. It's not driven by hate or resentment. It's driven by clarity, like a chess master who suddenly sees the entire board. He steps back from the game, refusing to be a pawn. This is the hallmark of Sigma psychology, independence and discernment. A study published in the shows that emotionally detached individuals often make sharper, more rational decisions when faced with betrayal. The Sigma embodies that. He doesn't explode, he evaporates. And in doing so, he teaches a powerful lesson. Once trust is broken, presence becomes absence. And that absence is louder than words. Number 11, he's not seeking revenge. He's seeking mastery. You want to fight? He wants growth. While others waste energy plotting sabotage and stirring conflict, the Sigma male is focused on self-mastery. He's not interested in petty battles or ego-driven drama. His mind is fixed on leveling up. While you're scheming to distract him, he's deep in books, honing his craft, building skills that compound over time. Psychologists call this the growth mindset, the belief that abilities can be developed through dedication and effort. When the dust finally settles, it becomes clear. You were never competition. You were background noise. And he's already 3 chapters ahead in the book you never opened. Number 12, the world remembers the one who walked alone. The Sigma leaves a mark without needing a stage because his power lies not in performance but in presence. You may try to hurt him now, mock his silence, or underestimate his distance, but time has a strange way of honoring those who stand firm. While others chase applause, the Sigma builds in shadows, guided by discipline and inner resolve. He doesn't fold under pressure, he adapts, refines, and returns stronger. Historians don't always remember the loudest. They remember those who stood for something, and that's the Sigma's legacy, not fame, but a life crafted by principle, integrity, and unshakable focus. Trying to hurt a Sigma male isn't just ineffective, it becomes a lesson in futility. While others seek validation, Sigmas draw power from within, molded by isolation and sharpened through experience. You can't break a man who refuses to play by society's scripted rules. He thrives in silence, grows through setbacks, and finds clarity in chaos. Your attempt to wound him only exposes your own weakness. The Sigma doesn't react. He evolves. He doesn't fight for attention. He commands respect without demanding it. In the end, you'll remember the moment not because he fell, but because he didn't. This is the Sigma path. This is Brain Boosters. Hello, Sigmas. You think you know him, but what you see is only the surface. The truth? He doesn't want to be known. And that's exactly what makes him dangerous. He's the man who walks through a room without saying a word and still manages to dominate its energy. He doesn't crave your attention, yet somehow he captures it. That stillness, that calm exterior, it's not laziness or indifference. It's strategy. It's control. The Sigma male is often misunderstood because he doesn't play by the rules of social hierarchy. He's not an alpha barking orders or a beta seeking approval. He's outside the entire pack. A Sigma male operates on his own terms, walking the edge between visibility and invisibility. And it's not just about mystery, it's about power. Studies in psychology suggest that individuals who are perceived as reserved or emotionally self-contained tend to trigger greater curiosity and respect in social dynamics. That's why people remember the Sigma even after he's long gone. But don't be fooled. Behind the calm, there's a storm of complexity. He's introspective to the point of being surgical. He's constantly analyzing the world and himself, not out of anxiety, but out of sheer precision. Most people talk to be heard. He speaks only when it matters, and that unnerves others, because silence is power when used with intent. What he hides isn't weakness, it's strength. Hidden battles, private convictions, unresolved wounds, all of it turned inward and alchemized into grit. Society often pressures men to express vulnerability for validation, but the Sigma isn't interested in putting his soul on display for applause. He knows that not everything valuable needs to be seen. What's buried inside him? Emotional endurance, a code of loyalty, and a relentless pursuit of self-mastery. Each hidden layer is a weapon, refined through solitude, forged in silence, and polished by experience. So today we go beyond the mask. We step into the unseen territory of the Sigma psyche and uncover the strange, powerful truths he keeps tucked away. These aren't just secrets, they're survival tools. Let's begin with the first. Weird trait 1. He fears one thing, becoming ordinary. He's not afraid of failure because to him, failure isn't the end, it's the tuition fee for mastery. While most people tremble at the idea of falling short, the Sigma male embraces it. He studies his missteps like a scientist in a lab, dissecting each error not with shame, but with curiosity. He understands what Thomas Edison meant when he said, "I have not failed, I've just found 10,000 ways that won't work." He's not afraid of being alone either. In fact, solitude is where he thrives. Unlike extroverts who draw energy from crowds, the Sigma male draws strength from silence. Neuroscience supports this, showing that time spent in solitude can enhance creativity, improve focus, and even increase emotional regulation. But here's the twist. What truly keeps him up at night isn't failure or isolation. It's the idea of fading into the background of a scripted life. The thought of waking up one day and realizing he's simply played a part in someone else's story terrifies him. He doesn't want to become another name on a payroll, another commuter on autopilot, or another opinion recycled from social media. His fear is existential, a quiet panic that he might forget his mission, lose his edge, and dissolve into mediocrity. He guards his individuality like a lion protects its territory. While others chase trends, he carves his own path. He questions everything from societal expectations to his own motivations because he refuses to live a life by default. Studies in psychology show that people who operate from intrinsic motivation like the Sigma male are more likely to experience long-term fulfillment and purpose. So while the world praises those who fit in, he silently builds a legacy that stands out. He's not trying to impress anyone, he's trying to remain true to the fire that burns within, and that's why he can walk away from a job, a relationship, or even a reputation, if it means staying aligned with his deeper calling. Because for the Sigma male, the real danger isn't failure or loneliness, it's dying with his mission still locked inside him, unspoken and unfinished. Weird trait 2, he feels deeply, but processes it privately. You won't see him cry, you won't hear him rant. He's the type of man who walks through storms with his hands in his pockets, shoulders square, and silence as his armor. But don't let that stoic surface fool you, because when he's alone, he transforms into a mental surgeon, dissecting his life with almost clinical precision. Pain isn't just felt, it's studied. Betrayal isn't just endured. It's analyzed like a complex riddle. Hope and loss aren't swept under the rug. They're placed on the table, turned over, and examined from every angle. This is the hidden emotional life of a Sigma male, the archetype of the introspective lone wolf. Psychology tells us that emotionally intelligent individuals don't always express emotions outwardly. They process them internally, often through self-reflection and problem-solving. That's exactly what's happening behind closed doors. Instead of venting to friends or breaking down in front of others, the Sigma male chooses solitude to regain clarity. He doesn't drown in his feelings, he decodes them. And that's what makes him powerful. It's not repression, it's transformation. Studies on cognitive processing suggest that individuals who journal, meditate, or simply take time to reflect privately are better at emotional regulation and long-term decision-making. That's why, even when life hits hard, the Sigma male doesn't spiral out of control. He absorbs the blow, retreats to silence, and then rebuilds from the inside out. In a society that often confuses loud expression with strength, his quiet resilience may be misunderstood as coldness or detachment, but in truth it's a form of emotional mastery. He knows that feelings are data, not destiny. So rather than being consumed by them, he decodes the message they carry, files it away, and keeps walking. This inward discipline, this private battle against chaos, is what allows him to re-enter the world composed, focused, and unshaken. He doesn't need applause for surviving. He doesn't crave sympathy for enduring. He just needs a quiet room, a few hours, and the trust that he can make sense of it all on his own. So the next time you see him calm when he should be falling apart, know this. It's not that he feels less. It's that he feels deeply, but processes like a warrior. Weird trait 3. He second-guesses everything, especially himself, not out of weakness, but from a need to refine. This is the silent philosophy of the Sigma male, a man not driven by ego, but by relentless self-examination. Every move he makes is deliberate, not because he's afraid to fail, but because he wants to grow. In a world that often celebrates noise and surface-level validation, the Sigma male retreats into depth. He questions everything, not just the world around him, but also his own instincts, assumptions, and motives. His decisions are not impulsive, but processed through intense introspection. This is not a symptom of insecurity, but evidence of an internal evolution. While others may rush to speak or act to prove their worth, the Sigma observes, studies, and recalibrates. He doesn't fear being wrong. Mistakes are part of the process. What he truly fears is being unaware, disconnected from truth, or asleep at the wheel of his own life. His mind is his battleground, and his quest is for clarity. This mindset aligns closely with the philosophical concept of the idea that wisdom begins with recognizing one's own limitations. Sigmas embody this without ever labeling it. Studies in psychology even suggest that those with higher levels of metacognition, the ability to think about one's own thinking, tend to make better decisions and adapt more quickly to change. That's the Sigma in motion, adapting, adjusting, and refining. He lives in constant beta mode. Not because he's broken, but because he's evolving. It's not about being the loudest or the most followed. It's about being the most self-aware. In a society obsessed with certainty, he finds power in curiosity. That's why people often misunderstand him. He can seem distant or hard to read, but in truth, he's just busy thinking deeper than most people are comfortable with. The Sigma male's journey is not linear, and it's certainly not glamorous by conventional standards, but it's real. It's raw, and it's purposeful. He's not afraid to destroy an old version of himself if it means building a better one. In the end, his detachment is not coldness, it's precision. His silence is not absence, it's focus. And his refinement is not perfectionism, it's transformation. Weird trait 4. He's obsessed with freedom, but operates in systems. It sounds contradictory, but it's not. The Sigma male doesn't crave chaos, he craves control. But unlike the Alpha, who commands the external world, the Sigma builds an inner empire governed by structure, self-discipline, and unshakable mental clarity. He doesn't need to dominate people, he dominates himself. Every action in his life, from his morning routine to the way he walks into a room, is deliberate. He wakes before the world, not to post it online, but because he values the silence. In that quiet, he builds mental fortresses through routines, private rituals, and codes of conduct that only he follows. Psychology studies have found that routines can reduce anxiety, increase focus, and even strengthen willpower. Traits Sigma males seem to embody effortlessly. They live by an internal compass that never seeks applause. At his core, the Sigma is an engineer of his own psyche. He reverse engineers his past experiences to understand patterns, emotions, and flaws. He processes feelings like data, breaking them down, extracting meaning and making peace with them instead of letting them fester. No emotion goes unprocessed. He doesn't suppress what he feels, he studies it. No weakness goes unchecked. If there's a flaw in his character or a gap in his skill set, he isolates it like a virus and works until it's no longer a threat. And no illusion goes unchallenged, whether it's societal norms, groupthink, or even his own assumptions. The Sigma questions everything. He doesn't just live in the world, he audits it. While some chase influence and followers, he builds influence by simply mastering himself. That mastery gives him an eerie calm, an invisible power that people sense but don't quite understand. He walks through chaos like a man who's already prepared for the storm, not because he controls the world, but because he controls his response to it. That's the paradox. His freedom comes from structure, his power from discipline, and his silence speaks louder than the noise around him. This is not just stoicism, it's strategy. The Sigma doesn't obey the world, he designs his own. Weird trait 5, he ghosted you, not to hurt you, but to protect his energy. People often call it cold. They say he's distant, aloof, or even arrogant. But what they don't understand is that for him, silence is not a weakness, it's a weapon. It's a shield he's learned to wield in a world that demands constant noise, validation, and emotional availability. This man, often described as a Sigma male, operates on a different wavelength. He doesn't engage in small talk for the sake of filling awkward silence. He doesn't respond to every provocation or feel the need to explain his every move. Instead, he observes, calculates, and evaluates. Every interaction is measured. He asks himself, will this drain me? Will it disrespect me? Or will it distract me from my purpose? If the answer is yes to any of those, he's already out the door, mentally, emotionally, or physically. This isn't emotional detachment, it's emotional discipline. Psychology actually supports this behavior. Studies in cognitive load theory show that humans have limited mental energy, and constantly engaging in unnecessary conversations or toxic environments depletes that energy quickly. Introverts and analytical thinkers, especially those with traits associated with high-functioning autonomy, know that their peace is a form of power. And so he chooses solitude over chaos, clarity over confusion, and purpose over popularity. What may seem like avoidance is actually discernment. He's learned through experience that not everyone deserves access to his time, his thoughts, or his energy. There's also a neurological edge to his behavior. The brain's amygdala, which processes emotions like fear and anger, is less reactive in people who practice restraint and self-control, traits that define his quiet demeanor. While others shout to be heard, he speaks only when necessary, and when he does, people listen because his words carry the weight of thought and intention. His silence is not a void, it's a boundary, one that protects his mental clarity, filters out nonsense, and allows him to focus on what truly matters. So when people say he's cold, what they really mean is that they can't penetrate his peace, and that frustrates them. Because in a noisy world full of attention seekers, the man who chooses stillness and self-respect stands out, not by trying to be different, but by refusing to be anything other than true to himself. Weird trait 6, he respects loyalty, but rarely trusts anyone fully. He knows people change when they need something. This isn't cynicism, it's clarity born from experience. The Sigma male has observed it countless times, the sudden friendliness of someone who once ignored him, the carefully chosen words from those who once dismissed him, and the resurrected relationships that only rise from the grave when opportunity knocks. He's learned the hard truth that when desperation enters the room, personalities shift like shadows at sunset. Words, he knows, are cheap. Anyone can say the right thing when the stakes are low or when they want something in return. Flattery becomes currency in this transactional world, a manipulative art form dressed up as sincerity. Compliments to him are not always gifts, but often tools of persuasion, cloaked in charm to mask intent. That's why he doesn't trust promises. He trusts patterns. Human behavior is predictable if you're willing to watch without emotion. The Sigma observes the repetitions, the way someone reacts under stress, how they behave when no one's watching, how consistent they are when the spotlight fades. He tracks these patterns like a hunter tracks footprints in the snow, knowing that the truth of a person is found not in what they say, but in what they do. That's why even when he walks beside you, you'll never see him fully expose his back. It's not that he doesn't care, it's that he's too seasoned to surrender blind trust. Like a lone wolf that joins the pack only when necessary, the Sigma male remains partially withdrawn, always watching, always aware. Trust, to him, is earned in silence, proven over time, and never demanded. Psychologically, this approach aligns with what behavioral scientists call pattern recognition bias, the ability to predict outcomes based on repeated behaviors. It's a survival mechanism rooted in intuition and refined by experience. Sigma males don't build walls out of fear. They build boundaries out of wisdom. And those boundaries protect a man who has likely been betrayed before, who has seen masks fall off, and who now understands that loyalty isn't declared, it's demonstrated. So when the world plays its games, the Sigma male doesn't play along. He watches, he listens, and he remembers, because in the end, truth is not what people say, but what they again and again. Weird trait 7, he listens more than he speaks, because silence exposes people. In conversations, the Sigma male rarely interrupts, not because he's passive, but because he understands the power of silence. Psychologically, people tend to fill silence with their thoughts, opinions, and emotions. When someone isn't interrupted, they reveal more about themselves, sometimes more than they intend. This is exactly what the Sigma male is waiting for. He observes, he listens, and he learns. By choosing to stay quiet, he gains insight into people's character, intentions, and insecurities. It's a subtle but effective form of social intelligence. In fact, studies in behavioral psychology show that active listening increases trust and openness in others. While alpha males dominate with volume and presence, Sigma males dominate with patience and mystery. This behavior isn't born out of shyness or indifference. It's strategy. He's not interested in small talk or one-upping someone in a debate. Instead, he finds strength in restraint. In a world where everyone rushes to be heard, he stands out by not trying. His calm demeanor and selective speech give weight to his words when he finally does speak. People listen more carefully because he doesn't waste breath. It's this discipline of withholding that makes him magnetic. He doesn't have to prove anything. His silence speaks volumes. And in a society obsessed with being loud, his ability to observe in quiet makes him not just different, but dangerous in the most intelligent way. Weird trait 8. He can be charming, but chooses not to be. Yes, he can play the game. He can manipulate, attract, and influence. With calculated precision, he knows how to say the right things, move in silence, and command attention without raising his voice. But here's the thing. Charm feels fake to him. It's not that he can't be charming. In fact, he's mastered it. But unlike others who wield charm like a constant mask, he treats it like a blade, drawn only when absolutely necessary. That's because the Sigma male operates on a different frequency. Studies in psychology have shown that people who rely less on social validation and more on internal values often have higher levels of authenticity, which makes their rare moments of charm all the more powerful. He knows that excessive charm often borders on manipulation, and manipulation doesn't interest him unless there's a purpose behind it. While alpha males may use charisma to dominate and beta males may use it to please, the Sigma male uses it strategically to open a door, shift a dynamic, or exit a situation with precision. People sense this difference. His restraint adds weight to his words, making him more mysterious and more memorable. It's not that he can't turn on the charm, it's that he doesn't need to. And in a world obsessed with performance and pretense, that quiet resistance makes him both dangerous and deeply compelling, because when he does decide to charm, it doesn't just impress, it disarms. And that's a power he wields with purpose, not for applause. The Sigma male doesn't hide because he's weak. He hides because his truth is too sharp, too clear, and too calculated for a chaotic, overstimulated world. His silence is not rooted in fear or shame, but in precision and control. Much like the lone wolf who separates from the pack to master its instincts, the Sigma retreats not to escape, but to refine. In psychology, individuals with introverted, intuitive, and analytical traits often perform their best work in solitude, and Sigmas embody this truth. He builds in silence, not for applause, but for alignment with his values. He loves deeply, but not loudly, because real connection doesn't need a stage. Every step he takes is intentional. Every glance is observation, not reaction. He is emotionally intelligent, calculating patterns, motives, and shifts in energy. You may not always understand his moves, but his presence leaves a lasting impression, etched in the memory of those who encounter him. He doesn't shout to be heard. The weight of his silence says more than words ever could. In a world obsessed with visibility, he finds power in being unseen. Stay curious, stay hidden, stay grounded, and like the Sigma, become unforgettable by never needing to prove your worth. They tell you to follow the crowd. He never does. They say fit in, he walks out. They call it rebellion, he calls it truth. The Sigma male is not defined by noise, attention, or applause. He doesn't chase validation or broadcast his every move to win approval. Instead, his strength lies in his silence, his independence, and his ability to see the world for what it is. An elaborate stage where most people play parts written by someone else. While the majority seek comfort in conformity, the Sigma thrives in solitude, where he is free to think, question, and dismantle illusions. He's not interested in the latest trends, the social hierarchies, or the endless competition to be somebody. Not because he's trying to rebel, but because he sees the game for what it is, a system built to distract, control, and pacify. In psychological terms, the Sigma is an embodiment of the someone who's driven not by social approval, but by inner truth. He questions what others accept without a second thought. While the masses absorb narratives handed down through media, culture, and tradition, the Sigma dissects them, pulling them apart to see what they're really made of. This mindset is rooted in high critical thinking and strong self-awareness, traits often linked to lone wolves in psychology and leadership studies. He doesn't rage against the machine, he simply walks away from it, and that unnerves people. His calm, detached clarity cuts through social noise like a scalpel, and in a world that thrives on groupthink, manipulation, and shallow identity, someone who doesn't play by the script becomes a threat. Not because he attacks the system, but because he's proof that you don't need it. As we peel back the layers of mass-believed lies, remember this. The Sigma doesn't need to scream the truth. His very existence whispers it loud enough. And that whisper, that's what makes people turn, stare, and wonder what he knows that they don't. Belief one, you need to be constantly social to be successful. The world often equates extroversion with influence. We're told that the loudest voice commands the room, that charisma equals leadership, and that success is found in constant connection. But the Sigma male quietly rewrites that narrative. For him, power isn't measured in volume. It's measured in clarity, intention, and depth. In a culture obsessed with being seen, the Sigma thrives in the unseen. Solitude isn't his punishment, it's his forge. Where others dread silence, fearing it might echo back their insecurities, the Sigma finds a signal in the quiet, a refined frequency that tunes him into his purpose. Neuroscience even backs this up. Studies show that time spent in solitude improves memory, boosts creativity, and strengthens focus by giving the brain uninterrupted space to reflect and rewire. While the extroverted world chases endless conversations and surface-level validation, the Sigma male uses his time alone to master his craft. He doesn't waste hours impressing strangers at social events. He invests those hours in building systems, refining skills, and constructing a life on his terms. Think of innovators like Nikola Tesla or introverted strategists like Warren Buffett. Men who didn't seek the spotlight but became icons because they mastered the art of focus and deliberate thinking. The Sigma doesn't resist the world, he simply walks through it differently. His quiet is not emptiness, it's incubation. His distance is not detachment, it's precision. He may appear indifferent to the buzz of the crowd, but beneath that still surface is a mind that's constantly observing, learning, and adapting. While others are distracted by popularity contests, he's busy building empires behind the scenes. Society may praise extroversion for its charm, but the Sigma male proves that silence can be just as commanding. when it's backed by substance, strategy, and self-mastery. In a world that mistakes noise for strength, the Sigma's power lies in his ability to remain still, think deeply, and act decisively. Belief 2. Emotions should guide your decisions. Sigma males don't reject emotion, they master it. In a world that often tells men to either suppress their feelings or drown in them, the Sigma male walks an entirely different path. He doesn't shove emotions into the dark corners of his psyche, nor does he allow them to run wild and dictate his every move. Instead, he studies them, understands their roots, and uses them as data points rather than commands. Neuroscience confirms that emotions are closely tied to decision-making, especially in the amygdala and prefrontal cortex. But while most people are ruled by the impulses triggered in those brain regions, the Sigma male activates the higher reasoning centers to stay calm, collected, and in control. Society tends to give men two options: be as hard as stone or as soft as water, completely shut down emotionally or become emotionally reactive. But the Sigma is neither. He is fire. Not destructive and reckless, but focused and purposeful. Fire transforms, refines, and only consumes what is necessary. The Sigma uses his inner flame to burn away distractions, fuel ambition, and illuminate the truth of who he is. He doesn't lash out in anger. He channels that energy into strategy. He doesn't freeze in fear. He turns that fear into fuel for growth. He doesn't run from pain, he interrogates it, learns from it, and moves forward stronger. What sets the Sigma apart is his refusal to be emotionally manipulated. While others may cave under pressure, guilt, or societal expectations, he follows the path dictated by truth, not trends. He knows that raw emotion, unchecked, can lead people to betray themselves, but when mastered, emotions become a compass that guides him inward, toward clarity. Entertainment media often paints emotionally detached men as either villains or broken souls. But the Sigma is neither. He feels deeply but rarely shows it unless there's purpose behind the reveal. He's not heartless, he's disciplined, he's not cold, he's precise. The Sigma male's emotional intelligence lies not in how loudly he feels, but in how silently and effectively he moves through those feelings, always anchoring himself in what is real, what is right, and what is necessary. This is not denial. It is domination of the self, and in that mastery he becomes unstoppable. Belief 3, you need approval to be worthy. Likes, followers, compliments. In today's hyper-connected world, these have become society's new currency, metrics by which people measure their worth, popularity, and even success. But the Sigma male walks an entirely different path. He isn't driven by the fleeting buzz of digital validation or the applause of the crowd. His wealth isn't external, it's internal. It's the wealth of self-awareness, of knowing who he is when no one's watching. He doesn't perform to be liked, nor does he curate his personality for approval. While others chase trends and contort their image to fit social molds, the Sigma male remains anchored in authenticity. He doesn't bend to be liked. He doesn't shift to be seen. His self-respect isn't up for negotiation, and his values aren't compromised for attention. Psychology supports this mindset. Research on intrinsic motivation reveals that individuals who derive their sense of worth from internal goals, like personal growth or autonomy, tend to have higher well-being and are less susceptible to anxiety or depression than those chasing external validation. For the Sigma, being misunderstood is a price he's willing to pay for his integrity. It's not because he thinks he's better than others, but because he knows the danger of living for likes. It's a slippery slope to self-abandonment. That's not arrogance, it's armor. Armor forged in solitude, shaped by reflection and worn not to repel others, but to protect what's sacred within. He's aware that popularity can be purchased, but authenticity must be earned, and sometimes earned in silence. He doesn't feel the need to explain himself or seek the crowd's approval because his compass isn't pointing outward, it's pointed within. This rare independence can confuse others, even intimidate them, because it exposes just how much of the average person's identity is borrowed from the outside world. The Sigma male is a reminder that there is a deeper, quieter power in walking alone, not in bitterness, but in clarity. In a world addicted to being seen, he's focused on seeing himself clearly, and that clarity is more valuable than any number of followers, likes, or empty praise. Belief 4, You must constantly explain yourself. The world is obsessed with explanations, craving reasons, justifications, and endless dialogue to make sense of someone's choices. But the Sigma male operates by a different code. He understands that true clarity doesn't require confirmation. If he chooses to exit a conversation, leave a job, or walk away from a relationship, he does so with calm resolve, not as an act of rebellion, but as a declaration of sovereignty. He doesn't feel the need to draft emotional essays or offer long-winded speeches about why he made that decision. Why? Because he knows that often, the more you explain, the more others try to challenge, manipulate, or control your reasoning. The act of explaining becomes an invitation, an open door for people to inject their opinions, twist your truth, or try to negotiate your boundaries. Sigma males deny that entry. Silence for them is not awkward, it is powerful. It becomes the loudest message in a world addicted to noise. Psychology even backs this up. Studies show that assertive individuals who operate with emotional independence often speak less and act more. It's not arrogance, it's clarity. It's a deep understanding that those who truly understand you don't need explanations, and those who demand them often don't care about your truth. They just want control over your decision-making process. In refusing to explain, the Sigma male reclaims his autonomy. He doesn't ghost out of immaturity. He disappears because staying would compromise his peace. And while others scramble to make sense of his absence, he's already moved on to the next purpose-driven path. His silence becomes a mirror, forcing others to face their own discomfort, their own insecurities, their own need for external validation. That's the thing about Sigmas. They don't seek applause, agreement, or approval. Their compass is internal, their decisions calculated, their exit deliberate. They live by a rare law of inner authority that doesn't beg to be understood. In a world where people are constantly broadcasting their every thought, the Sigma male chooses mystery. And in doing so, he remains one of the most misunderstood and most powerful figures in modern social psychology. Belief 5. You must respond to disrespect immediately. Some think that reacting fiercely to every insult or confrontation is a sign of strength, a way to assert dominance and earn respect. But the Sigma male knows better. He understands a deeper truth. Real power lies in restraint, not reaction. While the world teaches you to respond with emotion, to bark back louder when challenged, the Sigma moves in silence. He doesn't flinch when provoked because his confidence isn't fragile. It isn't tied to public opinion or ego battles. Instead, he wields emotional control like a weapon. Studies in psychology have shown that emotional regulation, the ability to pause and choose your response, is a mark of advanced self-awareness and intelligence. And this is the Sigma's natural state. When someone disrespects him, he doesn't waste time crafting the perfect comeback or trying to win the crowd. He simply removes himself. Distance becomes his statement. In a society obsessed with confrontation and constant validation, his silence speaks louder than any shouted defense. This isn't weakness, it's strategy. The Sigma knows that attention is a currency, and he won't spend it on what doesn't serve him. He vanishes, not because he's defeated, but because he's already won by refusing to play a pointless game. His detachment is unsettling to others because they can't manipulate what they can't provoke. And in that silence, the Sigma rewrites the rules of engagement. He proves that the most dangerous man in any room is not the loudest, not the angriest, but the one who doesn't need to prove a thing and still comes out on top. He's not looking for applause or revenge. His greatest revenge is elevation, moving forward, growing stronger, and letting others drown in their own chaos. The Sigma isn't reactive because he knows that reaction gives others control. Instead, he observes, calculates, and if necessary, disappears. And in that disappearance, there is power. Because while everyone else is still arguing, he's already on to greater things. That's what makes him unstoppable. Belief 6, power comes from dominating others. The alpha flexes, the beta submits, the Sigma calculates. In a world that obsesses over dominance and submission, the Sigma male breaks the pattern entirely. He's not the loudest in the room, nor is he the most agreeable, but he is often the most unsettling to those around him. Why? Because he plays a different game altogether. While alphas try to control people with force and betas seek approval through compliance, the Sigma controls only one thing: his presence. His emotional detachment is not a sign of weakness or lack of interest. It's a form of power, a conscious choice rooted in deep self-awareness. When he walks away, the silence he leaves behind can echo louder than any words shouted by an alpha. Studies in social dynamics show that people respond more intensely to unpredictability than to direct confrontation. This is why the Sigma's withdrawal often triggers more reflection and emotional response than any aggressive move. It's the psychology of absence. When something rare or mysterious is taken away, its value intensifies. The Sigma understands this on a strategic level. He doesn't burn bridges, he disappears into the fog, leaving others to question their own actions. His detachment isn't coldness, it's calibration. He knows when to lean in and, more importantly, when to step back. The calmness he carries isn't just composure, it's a warning. He's not invested in winning your approval, and that unsettles people used to validation-based power structures. This isn't to say he's emotionless. On the contrary, he feels deeply but rarely shows it, and that emotional control makes him both mysterious and magnetic. People can't quite figure him out, and in a world addicted to labels and certainty, that mystery becomes power. He's not in the crowd nor against it, he's simply beyond it. While others perform, he observes. While others argue, he calculates. While others chase attention, he disappears, only to return stronger, more refined, and more dangerous. The Sigma doesn't conquer through confrontation. He conquers through absence. And sometimes the loudest statement a man can make is his silence. Belief 7. You need to be part of a group to be safe. Herd mentality says stick together or perish. But the Sigma walks alone by choice, not exile. In a world where belonging is often equated with survival, the Sigma male defies the narrative, not out of rebellion, but out of deliberate understanding. While society teaches us to seek validation, support, and comfort in the group, the Sigma has discovered that his greatest strength is cultivated in solitude. Unlike alpha males who dominate social structures or betas who find identity through them, the Sigma steps off the path entirely. He knows that crowds often follow illusions, echoing each other's thoughts without question, like schools of fish darting in fear or tribes forming consensus without reflection. The Sigma, on the other hand, takes the slower, more dangerous route of independent thought. This doesn't mean he's antisocial or emotionally cold. On the contrary, he deeply understands human connection. He just doesn't need it to feel whole. His relationships are chosen, not required. He may build powerful alliances with others, but never becomes entangled in the emotional dependencies that come with attachment. Psychological studies show that solitude, when chosen voluntarily, increases creativity, emotional resilience, and cognitive clarity. The Sigma uses this solitude not to escape the world, but to sharpen his perspective. He becomes a master observer, watching, understanding, and strategically engaging when necessary. He doesn't isolate out of bitterness, but out of clarity. In doing so, he becomes the outlier, the variable the system can't control. His detachment is not a shield, but a strategy. And while the herd panics at the thought of being left behind, the Sigma thrives in the quiet spaces they fear. The world may call him a mystery, a lone wolf, or even an enigma, but for him, this life is not a curse, it's freedom. He walks alone, not because no one will walk with him, but because the path he chooses simply doesn't allow for crowds. Belief 8. Stay safe, avoid risk, play it smart. The Sigma male isn't reckless, but he's not ruled by comfort either. Unlike the average man who often chooses the safety of routine over the uncertainty of growth, the Sigma male willingly steps into discomfort if it brings him closer to truth. His journey isn't about playing it safe, it's about chasing something real, even if it means walking alone. He'll walk through fire if it leads to freedom, not because he's immune to fear, but because he refuses to let fear dictate his decisions. Psychologists describe this mindset as high self-direction and autonomy, traits linked to greater personal fulfillment and psychological resilience. He understands that personal evolution doesn't happen in the safety zone. It happens in solitude, in trial, and in honest confrontation with oneself. The Sigma male risks being misunderstood, judged, or even abandoned, not out of rebellion, but out of devotion to his path of self-discovery. He doesn't chase legacy with a need for applause or external validation. Instead, he builds his legacy in silence, through restraint, excellence, and calculated moves. Studies in behavioral psychology show that individuals who operate with long-term vision and impulse control are more likely to achieve higher life satisfaction and success. That's the Sigma's playground. Every action he takes is intentional, unhurried, and often unnoticed by the crowd. He doesn't need to be seen to feel valuable. He doesn't need noise to feel alive. While the world rushes to be heard, he listens. While others seek attention, he seeks mastery. His life is the performance, quiet, powerful, and unforgettable. It's a masterpiece unfolding behind closed doors. He may not dominate boardrooms with charisma or flood social feeds with curated perfection, but he influences through presence, through energy, and through the sheer weight of his authenticity. He's not trying to be different. He just is. The Sigma male isn't trying to escape the system. He simply refuses to be controlled by it. His freedom is internal, his discipline is fierce, and his silence. That's where the real power lies. While the world watches for fireworks, the Sigma becomes the storm in the distance, unpredictable, undeniable, and unforgettable. These 8 beliefs are widely accepted by society without question, almost like default settings in the human operating system. But the Sigma male doesn't operate on pre-installed software. He questions every line of code. In a world that rewards conformity and punishes deviation, the Sigma chooses autonomy over approval. While others seek validation, he seeks truth. He isn't rebellious for attention, nor is he detached for drama. He simply refuses to live by second-hand thoughts. Psychology even shows that independent thinkers often face resistance, but they're also the ones who innovate and lead revolutions quietly. The Sigma male walks the road less traveled, not because it's fashionable, but because it's honest. While the world rushes toward noise, he steps back into silence. And in doing so, he becomes magnetic without effort. Stay curious, be unseen, be unfazed, be unforgettable, not by trying to stand out, but by refusing to blend in. Hello, Sigmas. In a world that thrives on noise, validation, and digital applause, the Sigma male remains the quiet observer, the ghost in the crowd who doesn't need to be seen to be significant. He doesn't chase clout or approval, not because he's rebellious, but because he's already forged an identity outside the system. While others compete for attention, he builds in silence. You'll rarely hear him raise his voice or explain his choices because he lives by an internal compass, rooted in logic, experience, and fierce independence. What sets the older Sigma apart isn't just his quiet nature, it's time. Time has sculpted him through solitude, sharpened him through setbacks, and molded his mind into something lethal, yet calm. He's faced betrayal that would break most people and chosen to grow instead of crumble. He doesn't wear bitterness as armor. Instead, he moves with a calculated stillness that commands respect without demanding it. Psychologically, Sigma males often score high on introversion and emotional stability, according to the Big Five personality model. But don't confuse his silence for weakness. It's strategy. The older Sigma has seen too much, lost enough, and learned what truly matters. And if you're lucky enough to earn his trust, he might offer a few words, not to gain favor, but to leave behind something useful, like a torch passed in a dark forest. What he offers isn't motivational fluff. It's raw, unfiltered wisdom born from years of walking alone. He doesn't hand you rules. He offers codes. Codes for surviving betrayal, building resilience, understanding people without trusting everyone, and for mastering the art of. These are lessons the world won't teach you because the world doesn't reward those who move in silence. But the older Sigma doesn't care for rewards. He's after mastery. And if you're watching this, it means you might be ready for that path. So let's step inside his mind and uncover 8 pieces of rare advice, not for attention seekers, but for those who are ready to walk the cold, disciplined road of self-ownership. Let's begin where it all starts. Number 1, master silence before speech. The older Sigma doesn't waste words. Every sentence is a sharp blade, trimmed of ego, stripped of performance, and forged in stillness. He's not interested in impressing others with volume or flair. His responses are deliberate, not because he lacks thoughts, but because he understands the power of restraint. The older Sigma has learned what most men never do, that noise is often a mask people wear to hide their insecurities, and silence is not weakness, it's a weapon. In psychology, this is closely related to what's known as high self-monitoring behavior. People who speak less but observe more are often more attuned to their environment and social cues. Silence becomes a form of dominance, of control, of strategic observation. The Sigma knows that most people talk simply because they fear being overlooked or forgotten. They fill the air with words, hoping to be seen. But the Sigma, he speaks only when there is something worth saying, something grounded in truth or purpose. When he was younger, he too felt the pull to react, to defend, to be heard. But life has taught him through experience, heartbreak, and reflection that the real victory isn't in the loudest response, it's in mastering stillness. Neuroscience backs this up. Studies have shown that people who practice intentional silence or mindfulness have stronger prefrontal cortex activity, which is linked to better decision-making and emotional control. The Sigma has internalized this. He's seen how battles are often lost through overreaction and how composure, when held long enough, causes opponents to unravel on their own. That's why when he finally speaks, people lean in. His words carry weight because they're rare. His voice disrupts the noise like a sudden thunderclap on a quiet night. He doesn't speak to be liked. He speaks to be understood, and often he doesn't speak at all, because he's already said enough with his presence. His silence isn't empty. It's filled with observation, calculation, and truth. And in a world addicted to attention, the Sigma's calm, quiet power is unforgettable. Number 2, discipline is your only true freedom. Freedom doesn't come from breaking rules, it comes from breaking yourself. This isn't just a poetic phrase, it's a brutal truth that Sigma males come to embody, especially as they grow older and wiser. True freedom isn't found in rebellion for its own sake or in chasing thrills without boundaries. Instead, it's found in the hard discipline of mastering your own mind and body. The older Sigma male understands that his worst enemy is not society, authority, or any external system. It's his own undisciplined nature. He sees that his impulses are not expressions of freedom, but chains disguised as desire. Instant gratification, the endless pursuit of comfort, and the addiction to pleasure are all traps, cleverly designed to make men weak, distracted, and dependent. The older Sigma has chosen the harder path, not to escape pressure, but to become someone who no longer crumbles under it. He built his life like a fortress, not out of arrogance, but necessity. His routines aren't boring, they're weapons designed to keep him sharp and focused. His solitude isn't loneliness, it's the forge where his mind is tempered. And pain, that's his coach. Whether it's waking up early, pushing through physical training, or saying no to destructive temptations, he sees pain not as punishment, but as purification. Neuroscience even supports this. Habits and discipline shape neural pathways that increase resilience, emotional control, and long-term satisfaction. The Sigma male isn't looking for a way out, he's looking for a way through. He knows the most dangerous thing a man can do is wait for someone to save him. So when he looks you in the eye and says, "Your freedom doesn't come when the pressure ends, it comes when you no longer need to be rescued," he's not speaking from theory. He's speaking from war, from years of inner battle, and from a life carved by purpose. He's been broken, but he didn't stay shattered. He rebuilt himself, not to impress others, not to follow a crowd, but to walk his own path. That's the essence of Sigma freedom. Not lawlessness, but self-law. Not comfort, but control. Not rescue, but rebirth. Number 3, never explain your silence. People get nervous when you're quiet. They don't know what you're thinking, and that unsettles them. In a society that thrives on constant communication, commentary, and connection, silence becomes threatening. It's misunderstood as rude, cold, or arrogant. But for the older Sigma male, silence is not a sign of detachment or superiority. It's a carefully chosen response, a boundary forged through experience. The world teaches most men to explain themselves, justify every move, and seek validation through words. But the Sigma walks a different path. He has learned that not every absence needs explanation, not every question deserves an answer, and not every goodbye requires closure. Why? Because he's been through the noise before, the betrayals, the fake friendships, and the manipulation behind sugar-coated words. And over time, he refined his strength, not through volume, but through clarity of self. Silence became his language of power. It's not that he can't speak, he simply chooses when it's truly necessary. He understands that people project their insecurities onto what they can't interpret. When you're quiet, others are forced to confront themselves. That's why they panic, that's why they call you aloof or distant. But in truth, your silence is a mirror that reflects their inner discomfort. Scientifically speaking, silence activates the brain's default mode network, responsible for introspection and self-evaluation, which can be uncomfortable for those not used to being alone with their thoughts. That's why the Sigma's calm stillness often rattles the noisy world around him. It breaks the rhythm of expectation and forces others to question the need for constant validation. The Sigma has no desire to correct the misunderstandings. He knows that true strength doesn't beg to be seen or understood. Like a lion resting in the shade, he doesn't roar to prove his dominance. His presence alone is enough, and when the time comes, his words, precise and deliberate, carry more weight than the endless chatter of 1,000 voices. So let them misinterpret you. Let them call you distant, cold, or proud. That's their noise, not yours. The older Sigma knows your silence isn't absence, it's alignment, it's control, and more importantly, it's freedom. Number 4, ghosting isn't cruelty, it's precision. The Sigma male doesn't linger in toxic places, and that's not just a personality quirk, it's a calculated life philosophy. While others might stay entangled in situations out of guilt, comfort, or fear of being alone, the Sigma has trained himself to recognize when a space, a relationship, or an environment is no longer nourishing his soul. He doesn't wait for the 100th red flag, he doesn't write emotional essays when trust is broken, and he certainly doesn't waste his breath arguing over disrespect. Instead, he walks away. Not with fireworks, not with slammed doors, but with calm, deliberate steps. It's not about spite, it's about principle. Psychologically, this behavior aligns with a high level of emotional intelligence and self-respect. The Sigma male's actions are rooted in a deep understanding that peace is more valuable than proving a point. In fact, studies in behavioral psychology show that individuals who prioritize inner peace over social approval are more likely to experience long-term emotional well-being. The Sigma may say, "If I leave clean," and he means it. He doesn't stir the pot, doesn't ignite drama, and doesn't look back to see if anyone is watching. His departure is not a tactic. It's a declaration that he refuses to be poisoned by negativity. The world may interpret his silence and distance as coldness, even arrogance, but the Sigma knows what it truly is: clarity, clear boundaries, clear values, clear direction. He understands that chaos is contagious and that staying too long in dysfunction can cloud judgment and drain purpose. That's why he moves in silence and exits with dignity. This isn't escapism, it's emotional discipline. The Sigma doesn't just leave situations, he elevates from them. In a culture that thrives on endless dialogue, oversharing, and constant digital connection, the Sigma's quiet departure can feel like a rebellion. But for him, it's the ultimate form of control. It's not about being better than anyone else. It's about being better than who he was yesterday. He doesn't chase closure. He doesn't seek applause. He simply chooses peace over noise. And in a world full of confusion and ego, that clarity is rare. The Sigma walks not to escape, but to evolve. Number 5, respect is currency, and you never give it for free. The older Sigma male is a man who has seen too much to be impressed by appearances. His perception cuts deeper than the surface. He watches people, not just their words, but their choices, their tone, and their timing. He doesn't fall for titles, credentials, or name-dropping. Authority doesn't move him unless it's backed by character. Fame? To him, it's just noise. He knows the loudest person in the room is often the weakest. The Sigma has no time for empty charisma or theatrical displays of dominance. He doesn't flatter those in power because he sees through the illusion. True strength isn't about controlling others, it's about mastering yourself. And that's what the Sigma values most. He respects integrity, not popularity. He admires those who remain calm under pressure, who don't fold when life gets hard, and who stay rooted even when storms hit. In a world of followers and performers, he is an observer, cool, detached, and calculating. He knows the difference between being heard and being wise. So when someone demands loyalty just because they speak loudly or boast endlessly, the Sigma doesn't argue, he simply walks away. To him, real connection is built on respect, not noise. Loyalty must be earned, not demanded. That's why the older Sigma has mastered the art of silence. He'll say, "You don't owe anyone your attention, not even your enemies." And that's not just a motto, it's a principle rooted in psychology and self-preservation. Attention is currency, and the Sigma refuses to spend his on drama or manipulation. Studies show that emotionally intelligent individuals learn to protect their energy, setting strong boundaries and withdrawing from toxic interactions without confrontation. The Sigma's withdrawal isn't cowardice, it's wisdom. It's what separates the reactive from the strategic. He chooses peace over pointless battles and truth over theatrics. And the older he gets, the less he explains himself. He's not heartless, but he's not available for every emotional circus. His loyalty is rare because it's real. His silence is sharp because it's intentional, and his presence when you earn it is a gift, not a guarantee. In a world chasing validation, the Sigma walks alone, not out of arrogance, but out of clarity. He's seen the price of false loyalty and decided his soul is not for sale. Number 6, choose solitude or be broken by loneliness. The older Sigma didn't always enjoy being alone. In fact, at first it burned like a slow fire in the soul. The silence was deafening, the absence of validation unbearable, and the isolation felt more like exile than choice. But solitude has a strange way of transforming a man. Over time, he discovered that being alone wasn't a punishment, it was preparation. Solitude, he learned, is not emptiness, it's a forge. Like fire tempers steel, isolation refines the soul. In the stillness, without the noise of others' opinions or expectations, he began to hear a voice he had ignored for years, his own. The distractions faded, and what remained was clarity. In that clarity, he found discipline, routines carved not out of obligation, but out of intentional purpose. He mapped his goals without interference and crafted a vision no one else had to believe in but him. Scientific studies even back this up. Solitude enhances creativity and focus, improving problem solving by reducing external social pressures. The Sigma's alone time became his secret weapon, a mental training ground that strengthened his resilience and sharpened his awareness. In a world that screams for attention and thrives on approval, he learned to sit with himself, and that changed everything. He realized that most people are endlessly chasing relationships, groups and trends, not out of passion, but out of the fear of being left out. But not him. Not anymore. He no longer fears loneliness because he no longer sees it as lack. He sees it as leverage. He understands now that power doesn't come from control over others. It comes from mastery over self. The Sigma male no longer waits for company to feel complete. He no longer craves belonging to feel important. His solitude is no longer a weakness. It's a weapon. If you ever speak to him, he'll tell you one truth. Learn to sit with yourself, or be forever chased by the need to belong. And in that one sentence lies the secret to his strength. He walks alone, not because he has to, but because he chooses to. The world tried to tame him through loneliness, but instead he turned it into power. Number 7, your legacy is not what they remember, it's what you built when no one was watching. The older Sigma male is a man who moves with quiet intent. He doesn't crave the applause of the crowd or the validation of followers. His focus is not on being seen, praised, or even understood. In a world obsessed with recognition, he lives as an anomaly, unbothered by trends, untouched by ego. While others scramble for influence, likes, and approval, the Sigma builds. He refines his craft in silence, studies in solitude, and makes strategic moves behind the curtain. He's the architect of unseen impact. He doesn't measure success by popularity or awards, but by resilience, efficiency, and the long-term value of what he creates. He improves daily, not for performance, but for purpose. He endures storms not to prove a point, but because he knows storms are part of construction. Legacy to him isn't a statue with his name carved into it. It's a system that functions long after he's gone, something that outlives him without needing to bear his identity. He's not interested in being the face of a movement. He's interested in building the foundation that will support it. Science, history, and innovation are full of Sigma-like minds, people who made breakthroughs not for applause, but for advancement. Nikola Tesla, for instance, died alone and broke, yet his contributions to alternating current and wireless technology shaped the modern world. That's the kind of impact the older Sigma understands. When asked why he didn't chase fame, his answer is simple and piercing. Because I wasn't building for them, I was building without them. His reward is not in recognition, but in knowing that the structure stands, that the blueprint worked, and that something of value endures, even if no one knows he was behind it. In this way, the older Sigma represents a timeless truth. True legacy doesn't beg for credit, it just works. Quietly, relentlessly, permanently. Number 8, revenge is noise, mastery is silence. There was a time when the Sigma male felt the urge to confront, to retaliate, to prove everyone who doubted him wrong. The need to defend his name, correct the narrative, or even get revenge burned like fire inside him. But with maturity comes a shift. The older Sigma male no longer engages in petty battles or loud declarations. He's learned that silence is more powerful than shouting, and results speak louder than rebuttals. He now understands that energy is finite, and wasting it on the opinions of small-minded people only delays his rise. In his wisdom, he lives by a quiet code. If they tried to bury you, let your success be what makes them realize you were a seed. This metaphor isn't just poetic, it's rooted in real psychology and philosophy. Studies in resilience show that people who redirect their focus inward rather than retaliating outwardly are more likely to achieve long-term growth and emotional strength. The Sigma male doesn't announce his moves. He doesn't warn his critics. He simply disappears, works in silence, and re-emerges transformed, unrecognizable, unreachable, untouchable. This is the art of strategic invisibility. He lets karma do what it does best, knowing that drama always circles back to its source. Instead of fighting fire with fire, he becomes lightning, unpredictable, silent until it strikes, and always above the storm. This isn't weakness, it's evolution. It's what sets the Sigma apart from the reactive alpha or the appeasing beta. His path isn't about dominance or submission, it's about transcendence. His vengeance is not loud, it is the life he builds, the peace he maintains, and the legacy he leaves behind. By becoming lightning, the Sigma male rises where others burn out. So now you have it. Not advice from the crowd, but truth from the shadows. In a world obsessed with noise, validation, and fitting in, choosing solitude isn't weakness, it's awakening. If the applause feels hollow and silence feels like sanctuary, you're not broken, you're simply seeing through the illusion. Sigma males thrive in the margins, where authenticity lives and masks fall away. The older Sigma doesn't guide with words, but with quiet evidence. He's walked through betrayal, solitude, and growth, proving that distance isn't isolation, it's liberation. He doesn't seek attention, but leaves an impact that lingers. In a society addicted to being seen, he proves that the unseen man often travels furthest. Stay curious, be unseen, be unfazed, be unforgettable. He doesn't bark, he doesn't boast, he just moves, and when he does, the ground beneath you shifts, not because he craves power, but because he understands it. This isn't the kind of power that screams or demands attention, it's the kind that operates in silence, waiting for the right moment to act. This is the Sigma male, the lone wolf of modern masculinity. In a world obsessed with dominance and submission, where alpha males roar and beta males yield, the Sigma does neither. He doesn't enter the room to control it. He becomes the silent force that redefines it. Psychology calls this type of man introverted dominant, a person who doesn't seek leadership yet often ends up leading. He doesn't climb the social ladder, he walks past it, uninterested. Society fears what it can't control, and that's what makes the Sigma so unsettling. He can't be caged, he can't be labeled, and most importantly, he can't be manipulated. While others shout to be noticed, he observes. While they chase validation, he builds mastery in silence. Most people are noise, he is signal, and in that stillness, he becomes magnetic. Studies in behavioral science show that those who operate calmly under pressure often command more respect than those who dominate aggressively. The Sigma doesn't ask for your attention, yet somehow he has it. His presence is not loud, but it's felt. He doesn't chase crowds. Crowds find him, and they don't even know why. He's not dangerous because he's violent. He's dangerous because he's unshakable. In a digital age, hooked on dopamine hits and social approval, the Sigma thrives in solitude. That's real strength. You won't see him coming because he never announces himself. And when he acts, it's with surgical precision. This isn't about being cold, it's about being in control. The Sigma male isn't here to play by the rules. He's here to rewrite them, quietly, intentionally, and without ever raising his voice. Welcome to Brain Boosters. Let's step into the shadows. Point 1, emotional sovereignty. A Sigma male doesn't react, he registers. In a world addicted to overreaction, instant gratification, and emotional chaos, the Sigma stands apart like a calm eye in the middle of a storm. His emotional discipline is not about cold detachment, but conscious awareness. While others are consumed by anger, panic, or excitement, the Sigma feels those same emotions, but he doesn't become them. He observes them. He studies them like a scientist watching a chemical reaction, not with judgment, but with curiosity. He knows that emotions are not commands, they are signals, and instead of reacting impulsively, he allows those emotions to rise, crest, and fall like waves. This ability to pause, process, and recalibrate gives him a powerful psychological edge. Studies in emotional intelligence have shown that self-awareness and regulation are two of the most important traits in high-performing individuals, especially leaders. But the Sigma isn't looking to lead in the traditional sense. He leads by example through stillness and strategy. Where others lash out, beg for attention, or spiral into breakdowns, the Sigma recalibrates silently, adapts, and redirects his energy. This isn't repression, it's mastery. And that mastery makes him unpredictable, calm under pressure, and resistant to manipulation. You can't guilt trip him, you can't flatter him into compliance, and you certainly can't shame him into submission. He doesn't depend on praise to feel worthy, and he isn't driven by fear to conform. That kind of independence is dangerous in a society built on social conditioning. A man who doesn't need applause won't dance to your tune. A man who doesn't fear rejection won't follow the herd. The Sigma understands that true power lies not in controlling others, but in mastering yourself. And while the world tries to provoke him, poke at him, and figure him out, he just watches, still, silent, calculating, because behind every calm expression is a mind that never stops thinking, and behind every non-reaction is a man who has already seen the outcome 10 steps ahead. Point 2, strategic isolation. He chooses solitude, not as an escape, but as a weapon. While most people fear being alone, the Sigma male embraces it with intention. He understands that solitude isn't loneliness, it's space for evolution. In this quiet arena where distractions are stripped away, he sharpens his mind, hones his craft, and trains his instincts. This isn't retreat, it's preparation. Historically, some of the world's greatest thinkers, from Nikola Tesla to Leonardo da Vinci, operated in solitude to unlock their genius. The Sigma male follows this ancient wisdom. He spends his time reading, experimenting, mastering disciplines others overlook. While the world chases noise and applause, he remains rooted in silence and purpose. He's not checking likes or retweets, he's checking progress. And what he's building in private will shake the world in public. This man isn't afraid of being alone because he's already faced and conquered the most difficult adversary, himself. Self-awareness is his foundation. He's wrestled with his demons, dissected his weaknesses, and learned to lead himself when no one was watching. There's no external validation that can shake a man who has internal validation. Psychologically, solitude can enhance creativity, emotional regulation, and problem-solving ability. Traits the Sigma cultivates intentionally. There's no need for echo chambers when your own thoughts are loud enough to challenge you. In solitude, he doesn't rehearse who the world wants him to be. He refines who he is. The clarity he gains isn't fragile. It's forged through hours of reflection and practice. And when a man walks through life with that kind of clarity, he becomes unstoppable. He doesn't jump on trends because he isn't looking for temporary relevance. He sets trajectories, planting seeds in silence that bloom in places others never thought to look. While society rushes toward attention, he gravitates toward mastery. The Sigma doesn't shout to be seen. He moves in silence, and people can't help but feel the tremors of his presence. He's not disconnected, he's deeply in tune. He's not apathetic, he's focused. He's not above others, he's just beyond the need to impress them. This is the power of solitude when it's used not to escape the world, but to prepare to lead it. Point 3, tactical ghosting. When a Sigma male withdraws, it isn't loud, messy, or dramatic. It's more like a sudden power outage. The lights are on one moment, and the next, complete silence. But that silence isn't passive or confused. It's deliberate. It's what psychologists might call strategic disengagement. The Sigma doesn't leave because he's angry or emotionally overwhelmed. He steps back because his internal compass tells him it's time to preserve his energy, reset his boundaries, and re-establish his autonomy. And when he disconnects, people feel it deeply. That's because Sigma males often hold invisible weight in social dynamics. They may not be the loudest voice in the room, but their presence creates balance. Remove them, and the atmosphere shifts. People start to notice the absence of quiet strength, deep awareness, and authentic energy. This withdrawal isn't about playing games or manipulating others through silence. It's a kind of emotional minimalism. Unlike others who might express discontent through arguments, passive-aggressive remarks, or emotional outbursts, the Sigma male opts for detachment, not because he doesn't care, but because he refuses to engage in cycles of unnecessary chaos. He's wired differently. Studies in psychology have shown that individuals with introverted yet assertive personalities, often classified under the INTJ or ISTP Myers-Briggs types, tend to regulate stress by detaching and analyzing rather than reacting emotionally. That's exactly what the Sigma does. He's not ghosting to be cruel, he's ghosting to be clear. It's a message written in silence. I value my peace over pointless conflict. And no, you can't tug on a Sigma's heartstrings to bring him back, because he's already done the hard inner work of cutting emotional dependency. He doesn't need validation to breathe, nor attention to feel alive, so when he pulls away, it's not to seek revenge or sympathy, it's to recalibrate. He's like a computer, closing all background apps to function at maximum efficiency. The world might label it ghosting, but for the Sigma, it's clarity. Clarity about who deserves access to him and who no longer fits the frequency he's operating on. That's not coldness, it's self-respect. Point 4, boundary without explanation. The Sigma male doesn't beg for understanding, and that alone sets him apart in a world obsessed with validation. He doesn't over-explain his choices or defend his path because he knows that truth doesn't need permission to exist. Instead, he operates on a foundation of logic, personal principles, and a finely tuned internal compass. Every action he takes is deliberate, not driven by public opinion, external pressure, or the need to be liked, but by a deep alignment with what he believes is right. This unnerves people. Society has conditioned most individuals to constantly explain themselves, to seek approval, to apologize for being different. We live in a culture where oversharing is seen as connection and validation is mistaken for truth. In contrast, the Sigma male's silence is powerful, almost confrontational. It forces others to sit with their own discomfort, to question their own need for affirmation. He's not interested in being understood. He's interested in being authentic. This is not arrogance, it's clarity. Psychologically, studies show that individuals with high self-differentiation, those who can maintain their beliefs and values even under pressure, experience less anxiety and greater emotional resilience. That's the Sigma. He doesn't fear rejection because his sense of self isn't built on the approval of others. But he does fear one thing: compromise. The Sigma knows that every time you compromise on your core values to please others, a part of your identity erodes. And when you fear compromise more than you fear loss, whether it's relationships, opportunities, or public favor, you become untouchable. You're no longer a slave to outcomes. You're no longer swayed by fear or bribed by comfort. You move through life with a kind of quiet power that doesn't shout but shakes the ground. That's why the Sigma male is so difficult to manipulate. You can't guilt-trip a man who doesn't chase approval. You can't seduce a man who values freedom over flattery. And you definitely can't control someone who would rather walk alone in truth than march with the masses in lies. In a world where everyone is desperate to be seen, the Sigma male's refusal to beg for understanding becomes his greatest strength and his most mysterious weapon. Point 5. Obsession with skill. The Sigma male doesn't compete with others. He competes with who he was yesterday. While the world is busy shouting, showing off, and scrambling for validation, the Sigma retreats into his world of quiet self-improvement. He's not driven by applause or comparison. His mission is personal. His battle is internal. You won't find him in locker room debates or trying to outshine someone at a party. Instead, you'll catch glimpses of him in libraries, gyms, dark-lit rooms where screens glow with lines of code, or nature trails where he trains in solitude. Every hour he spends in silence, reading a dense philosophical treatise, learning a new skill, refining a business model, is another brick in the fortress of mastery he's building. Mastery, after all, is his native language, not ego, not popularity, but precision, discipline, and evolution. Unlike the alpha, who dominates through charisma and loud presence, or the beta who seeks guidance and approval. The Sigma male charts his own course. He's not antisocial, he's selectively social. He doesn't broadcast his power with words, you simply it. You see it in how he moves with purpose, how he listens more than he speaks, and how his eyes scan a room and catch things most miss. It's in the things he builds: businesses, bodies, ideas, legacies. Studies on high performers and lone innovators like Nikola Tesla or Steve Wozniak show that some of the most influential figures thrived in solitude, driven not by the need to beat others, but to challenge themselves. This is the Sigma male mindset in action. In a world obsessed with trends, the Sigma becomes timeless. While others flex for attention, he sharpens his mind. While they seek clout, he seeks clarity. His detachment from the competition isn't laziness or fear, it's strategy. Because the only race he runs is against his former self, and every day he intends to win. Not to prove it to you, not to brag, but because that's what purpose demands. And for the Sigma, purpose is everything. Point 6, detachment from outcome. A Sigma male plays the long game, and that's exactly what makes him a force to be reckoned with. In a world obsessed with instant gratification, likes, and fast results, the Sigma operates on a different wavelength. He's not seduced by the dopamine rush of being first, loudest, or most visible. He's strategic, patient, and dangerously precise. While others scramble to be seen, the Sigma quietly works to be remembered. He's not addicted to quick wins because he knows that rapid success often fades just as fast. Research in psychology even backs this mindset. Studies show that delayed gratification is a key predictor of long-term success, emotional stability, and life satisfaction. The Sigma male naturally embodies this principle, not because he read it in a book, but because it's coded into his instincts. He doesn't need to chase applause, approval, or revenge. His ego isn't fragile enough to need validation. While most people seek victory in the moment, the Sigma seeks position in the future. That's why he doesn't just compete. He observes, calculates, and plants seeds in silence. He understands that building something meaningful takes time, and he's more than willing to wait. But don't mistake his patience for passivity. The Sigma is always moving, just not in ways that are obvious. His every decision is a brick in a foundation that others won't notice until it's towering over them. And because he isn't emotionally reactive, he can navigate betrayal, setbacks, or rejection with unnerving calm. He doesn't act to dominate today, he acts to own tomorrow. This long-term vision is what makes him dangerous in a world that celebrates short-term gains. By the time others realize what he's building, it's already too late to catch up. He's not loud about it. He doesn't broadcast his strategy, but rest assured he has one. It's a silent, calculated mission toward a legacy that outlives noise, trends, and temporary recognition. That's the Sigma's edge. While others burn out chasing approval or temporary wins, the Sigma remains focused, unbothered, and lethal in his patience. He doesn't play for applause, he plays for permanence. Point 7, invisibility is his power. While the world celebrates loud ambition, selfies, status updates, and constant noise, the Sigma male slips into the shadows, not out of weakness, but from wisdom. He doesn't need to broadcast his every move or chase validation from the crowd. Instead, he chooses depth over display, mastery over mediocrity. This is what makes him dangerous. Not in a destructive sense, but in a transformative one. You see, in a society obsessed with visibility, the one who operates in silence becomes a mystery. The Sigma is often underestimated because he doesn't play by the rules of social dominance. He's not vying for alpha approval or seeking beta camaraderie. He walks his own path, charted by personal principles and strategic solitude. While others are caught in cycles of competition and conformity, the Sigma studies, plans, evolves. And by the time people realize what he's doing, he's already 5 steps ahead. Psychologically, this aligns with the concept of strategic introversion. Research shows that introverted individuals often engage in deeper levels of thinking and problem solving because their energy isn't dispersed on social validation. The Sigma takes this to another level, combining stoic independence with sharp emotional intelligence. His unpredictability isn't a flaw, it's a tactic, because people can't read him, they can't manipulate or prepare for his next move. He knows how to remain calm in chaos, how to act when others react, and how to walk away when most people cling. That unreadability becomes his greatest weapon in a world desperate for patterns and predictability. But don't mistake his silence for inaction. While others announce their goals, the Sigma quietly achieves his. While others talk about what they'll do, he's already done it. His power lies in the element of surprise, not because he wants to shock, but because his process is internal, layered, and methodical. In a sense, the Sigma is like the deep ocean, still on the surface, but teeming with force below. And by the time you realize how deep he runs, you're already out of breath trying to catch up. He doesn't rise by climbing over others. He rises because he's building something no one else can see until it's complete. The Sigma disappears into depth, not to escape the world, but to master it from angles no one else dares to explore. Point 8. He doesn't want control. He is control. That's the paradox. The Sigma male doesn't seek to dominate others, not through noise, not through manipulation, not through force. He doesn't chase validation or control people's perceptions. In fact, he's too preoccupied with mastering the only territory that truly matters, himself. While the world around him clamors for attention, approval, and influence, he walks a different path, quiet, calculated, and introspective. This self-mastery is his power. And ironically, it's this power that draws people to him like moths to a flame. His silence speaks louder than most people's speeches. His restraint makes others curious. His independence makes others feel exposed. The Sigma is the storm that doesn't roar, not because it is weak, but because it knows its strength. He's like a lion that doesn't chase because it knows it can, and that confidence unsettles others. His presence doesn't need an introduction. It's felt, not announced. There's psychological evidence to back this phenomenon. Studies in social psychology reveal that people are naturally drawn to those who are emotionally self-regulated and non-reactive. The Sigma's emotional independence creates a calm, magnetic field, one that people feel safer around, yet slightly intimidated by. He has the edge of someone who could shake the ground beneath your feet, but chooses not to. That control of his emotions, his reactions, his impulses, is what people often mistake for mystery or danger. They sense the depth of his thought, the sharpness of his awareness, and the unpredictability of his next move. This unpredictability triggers a psychological response known as uncertainty arousal, where people feel both intrigued and unsettled. They don't know what he'll do next, and that makes them hyper-aware of him. While alphas may lead with volume and betas may follow with dependence, the Sigma leads with presence and follows no one. His energy lingers in a room long after he's left, not because he demanded attention, but because he owned himself completely. That's the paradox. He seeks no followers, yet people follow him. He desires no control, yet he influences effortlessly. And he says nothing, yet the silence around him becomes the loudest thing people hear. A Sigma male is dangerous, not out of malice or aggression, but because his independence defies the rules society depends on. He doesn't chase approval, validation, or power, yet somehow commands all three effortlessly. While others seek permission to rise, he builds quietly in the shadows, mastering his craft and mind. The danger lies in his self-sufficiency. He doesn't need the system, which makes him immune to its control. This unpredictability unsettles the status quo. In a world that thrives on noise and conformity, the Sigma male remains a silent storm, unseen, unfazed, and unforgettable. He doesn't just survive, he rewrites the rules. When most men feel threatened, they react, loudly, impulsively, and often emotionally. But when a Sigma male feels threatened, something different happens. He doesn't explode. He doesn't rush to defend his ego or prove his strength. Instead, he calculates. Like a grandmaster in a psychological chess match, the Sigma doesn't panic. He plans. His silence isn't weakness, it's strategy. Rather than meeting aggression with aggression, he retreats, not out of fear, but out of foresight. He observes the terrain, the players, and the motives. While others are caught in the moment, he's already 20 moves ahead, mapping out outcomes with surgical precision. This is not the story of a man who shouts to be heard. This is the story of a man who listens to understand. Sigma males are rooted in logic and independence. Their brain chemistry is often wired to favor introspective thinking, meaning their prefrontal cortex, the area responsible for planning, problem-solving, and emotional regulation, is highly active. In moments of confrontation, while others react from the amygdala, the fight or flight center, the Sigma taps into higher reasoning. He doesn't fear conflict, he studies it. He knows that energy spent proving oneself to doubters is energy wasted. Instead, he lets results speak, and when it gets personal, When betrayal, disrespect, or danger looms, he doesn't escalate. He evolves. He upgrades his mindset, trims unnecessary alliances, and adapts his strategy. It's why Sigmas are often underestimated. Their power doesn't announce itself, it unfolds quietly, methodically. While the world looks for dominance in volume and visibility, the Sigma's dominance lies in discipline and detachment. This isn't content for the average man. This is for the one who never bowed to social pressure, never sought validation, and never needed a crowd to move in power. It's for the strategist behind the silence, the man who, when backed into a corner, doesn't break, he builds. Welcome to Brain Boosters, where we study not how to be seen, but how to become unstoppable. Let's begin. Number 1, controlled disengagement. When the world tightens its grip, most men push back. They fight harder, speak louder, and try to control everything around them. But the Sigma male operates by a different code. He doesn't meet pressure with pressure. He dissolves the grip by loosening his own. This isn't weakness, it's what psychologists call a form of boundary setting that prioritizes mental sovereignty over social validation. The Sigma doesn't argue, doesn't beg, and doesn't explain. He simply withdraws. It's not a dramatic exit, it's a silent shift of energy. One moment he's there, the next he's not, and those who took him for granted are left in the echo of his absence. This form of controlled disengagement is rooted in deep emotional intelligence. Rather than letting toxicity infect his inner world, the Sigma male recognizes when a space, person, or situation is compromising his peace, and instead of fighting to change the environment, he changes within it. Science backs this up. Studies in neuropsychology show that emotional detachment, when done intentionally, can lower cortisol levels and preserve long-term cognitive function. In other words, detachment isn't escapism, it's protection. This quiet form of recalibration allows the Sigma to preserve his clarity and autonomy. He doesn't ghost out of immaturity, he leaves because he's already extracted the lesson. His silence isn't passive, it's powerful. In a world addicted to reaction, the Sigma chooses stillness. When chaos demands a response, he offers none. When drama seeks attention, he becomes invisible. This is the essence of his resistance, non-availability. Because once the Sigma pulls his energy back, the dynamic collapses. No more fuel for manipulation, no more participation in dysfunction. He understands that the most potent way to fight a toxic system is not to destroy it, but to starve it of attention. That's why the Sigma male doesn't yell or protest. And in that void, those who underestimated his presence begin to understand its true value. Number 2, mental reprogramming. Where others crumble under emotional weight, the Sigma rewrites his internal script. While the average person may relive emotional trauma on a loop, carrying resentment, repeating toxic cycles, and allowing pain to define them, the Sigma male takes a radically different approach. He doesn't simply endure pain, he dissects it. Like a seasoned coder debugging a complex system, he studies the source of his suffering with brutal honesty and laser focus. Instead of reacting emotionally, he analyzes patterns and behaviors, recognizing that emotional triggers are not enemies to be buried, but data points to be decoded. In neuroscience, this approach mirrors cognitive reappraisal, a psychological strategy shown to reduce negative emotional responses by reframing the meaning of a situation. The Sigma does this instinctively. He doesn't seek to be louder or more dominant in response to threats or failure. He becomes cleaner, more refined, like software that's been updated to remove bugs and optimize performance. His evolution is internal, quiet, and efficient. He doesn't let trauma mutate into bitterness. He doesn't suppress his emotions, but studies them until they lose their control over him. As a result, what breaks others only builds him. Stress and chaos become part of his calibration process. This is not emotional coldness, it's emotional intelligence at its highest level. He understands that real power lies not in pretending not to feel, but in refusing to be ruled by feeling. In a society that prizes instant reactions and loud personalities, the Sigma male's silent mastery stands out. He doesn't need validation, applause, or understanding. His transformation happens behind closed doors, in quiet moments of self-reflection and calculated reconstruction. While others are shaped by external pressure, the Sigma is sharpened by it. Threats don't mold him, they force him to upgrade. Like steel forged in fire, he emerges more resilient, more precise, and far more dangerous. Not because he retaliates, but because he refines. His software is updated not through drama, but through discipline. Pain doesn't imprison him. It programs him with new clarity. This is the Sigma's true edge, not brute strength, but emotional strategy. Not louder, just cleaner. Number 3, strategic silence. In the Sigma male's world, silence is never a sign of weakness. It's a calculated strategy. Unlike the Alpha, who commands attention, or the Beta, who seeks approval, the Sigma retreats into stillness when confronted, threatened, or tested. This is not passivity. It's a tactical shift to what could be called a low-signal, high-awareness mode. When others get loud, emotional, or reactive, the Sigma becomes quieter and more deliberate. His silence is not absence, it's analysis. He observes everything, the tone of voice, the hidden intentions, and the unspoken dynamics in the room. Neurologically, this aligns with how highly self-aware individuals activate their prefrontal cortex under pressure, using logic over impulse. In evolutionary psychology, this behavior mirrors lone wolves in the wild. Animals who don't bark when challenged. They assess, calculate, and act only when the odds are in their favor. The Sigma male operates much the same way. His silence becomes disarming. It throws off aggressors who expect either resistance or submission. Manipulators find no emotional cues to exploit. Loud personalities are met with a mirror that reflects nothing. It's unsettling, because society is used to noise, arguments, defensiveness, and over-explaining. The Sigma offers none of that. What he offers instead is presence, not performance. That presence feels powerful, precisely because it withholds energy. And the world, addicted to validation and reaction, doesn't know how to process that. The Sigma male is aware of this psychological advantage and leverages it in both personal and professional settings. Whether in a negotiation or a confrontation, he controls the tempo by controlling his signal output. He slows things down, he waits, he watches. This is not about avoidance, it's about dominance through restraint. In a world where everyone's broadcasting their opinions and emotions 24/7, the Sigma male becomes a mystery, and mystery is power. His silence isn't empty, it's loaded. Behind every quiet glance is a mental blueprint. Behind every pause is an intention. And when he finally does speak, every word lands with precision because it was chosen, not thrown. That's what makes the Sigma male so unnerving to opponents and so fascinating to observers. He doesn't play by volume, he plays by control. And in that game, silence wins. Number 4, redirection, not reaction. He doesn't waste time reacting to attacks. Instead, he redirects his focus, his time, and his energy. While most people live in a constant state of emotional reactivity, jumping from one drama to the next, the Sigma male does something radically different. He doesn't chase after every insult or defend every misunderstanding. He understands a timeless truth that many miss. Attention is currency. Whatever you give your attention to, you empower. So rather than waste time in petty arguments or emotional battles, he withdraws from the noise and realigns with purpose. He doesn't fight distractions, he replaces them with direction. Studies in cognitive psychology reveal that the human brain thrives when engaged in purpose-driven behavior, not chaos. Sigma males intuitively grasp this. While others burn out by reacting to every beep, buzz, and breaking headline, the Sigma preserves his most valuable resource, his mind. He uses it not to react, but to create. In a world where reaction is the default, he stays in creation mode. This doesn't mean he's passive or disconnected, it means he's disciplined. He knows that control isn't about dominating others, it's about mastering yourself. In the art of martial discipline like Aikido, practitioners don't block attacks head-on. They redirect the energy, turning the opponent's force into momentum for their own movement. That's the essence of the Sigma's life philosophy. Calmly, precisely, without noise, he builds, he creates, he lives with intention. Neuroscience even supports this approach. The prefrontal cortex, the brain's decision-making center, is strongest when not hijacked by emotional triggers. The Sigma male operates from that higher level of awareness. While others are slaves to reaction, he is the architect of direction, and that makes him rare. He's not avoiding the world, he's mastering his place in it. Every move is deliberate. Every silence is loaded with strategy. In a society obsessed with speed and noise, his stillness speaks volumes. It's not weakness, it's power under control, because at the end of the day, a man who can't be provoked, distracted, or manipulated is a man who can't be defeated. Number 5, energy stripping. The Sigma male is allergic to wasted energy. Every ounce matters to him. Unlike those who thrive in chaos or need constant social engagement, the Sigma operates with surgical precision. When he senses a threat, be it emotional manipulation, toxic people, or environments that drain rather than nourish, he doesn't react impulsively. He scans it silently, with a calculating mind. Like a tactician surveying a battlefield, he asks pointed questions. Is this situation worth my attention? Is this person worth access to my mental and emotional world? Most aren't. And when the answer is no, he doesn't announce it. He doesn't need drama or theatrics. He simply begins to withdraw, not out of fear, but out of respect for his time, his mind, and his peace. Emotionally, he detaches. Socially, he distances himself. Mentally, he closes the file and moves on. And when he walks away, he takes nothing with him. No guilt, no bitterness, no baggage. That's because energy is his currency, and he spends it like a minimalist investor. Scientifically, our brains consume a vast portion of our body's energy. The Sigma male, whether consciously or instinctively, protects his cognitive bandwidth like a scarce resource. Studies in psychology confirm that high self-monitoring individuals tend to conserve emotional energy by avoiding unnecessary social obligations. The Sigma is an expert at this. He's not cold-hearted, he's clear-headed. While others leak energy through endless arguments, people-pleasing, or overthinking, the Sigma is cutting cords. It's not that he doesn't care, it's that he cares too much to waste. He doesn't let external chaos dictate internal peace. His silence is not weakness, but strategy. His detachment is not apathy, but wisdom. In a world that constantly demands attention, the Sigma's refusal to be drained becomes his ultimate shield. He doesn't fight every battle, he vanishes from the ones that don't deserve him. Energy for the Sigma male is not just about stamina, it's about sovereignty. And in preserving it, he keeps something far more valuable than time: control. Number 6, emotional neutralization. Threats often come through emotional games: guilt, shame, and fear. These aren't just petty tactics, they're deeply rooted in human psychology, often used to manipulate and control. But the Sigma male, a man who exists outside traditional social hierarchies, is built differently. He doesn't fall for the bait. Where most people might react with outrage, panic, or desperate explanations, the Sigma responds with nothing. He neutralizes. His silence isn't submission, it's a calculated absence of energy. When someone tries to guilt him, he doesn't explain himself. When they attempt to shame him, he doesn't defend his identity. When fear is used to corner him, he doesn't retreat. He simply doesn't engage. This emotional discipline isn't accidental. It's the product of introspection, solitude, and self-mastery. In psychology, there's a term called emotional detachment, which, when healthy, allows individuals to maintain boundaries and think clearly under pressure. The Sigma has mastered this. He doesn't match their heat. He cools the room with indifference. This calm, almost eerie stillness is disarming. Imagine arguing with a man who won't raise his voice, won't flinch, and won't give you the satisfaction of emotional feedback. It turns their chaos into a monologue, one that echoes back to them with increasing absurdity. In a society addicted to emotional reaction, where outbursts are rewarded with attention and drama becomes currency, the Sigma male is a psychological blackout. He cuts the power. No emotion, no argument, no energy, just stillness. And in that stillness, manipulators lose their grip. They realize their games don't work here. Their arsenal becomes obsolete. The guilt has nowhere to stick. The shame dissolves in the silence. The fear rebounds like a boomerang. It's not that the Sigma doesn't feel, he simply chooses not to be ruled by feeling. That's his power. In the storm of emotional warfare, he becomes the I, calm, unmoved, untouchable. And while others may burn out in the fire of toxic engagement, the Sigma walks away cold, composed, and completely unaffected. His silence is not emptiness, it's dominance. Number 7, no signal reaction. Most men, whether they realize it or not, leak signals. These signals can be facial expressions, defensive body language, or verbal responses that reveal fear, pride, annoyance, or insecurity. In social dynamics, particularly in power struggles or manipulative environments, these subtle cues give others an emotional roadmap, a way to provoke, manipulate, or gain the upper hand. That's the average man. But the Sigma male operates on a different frequency. When conflict arises or tension fills the air, the Sigma doesn't offer a twitch of the eye, a change in tone, or a reaction to bait. He goes silent, not out of fear, but out of strategy. This is not passivity, but a calculated removal of emotional currency from the game. By giving no signal, no status update, no defensive rebuttal, no exaggerated posturing, he creates a kind of social void that others don't know how to fill. And in a world that thrives on control, that's terrifying. Human psychology is wired to respond to social cues. We read micro-expressions and tone of voice like radar systems scanning for weakness or authority. But when someone gives you nothing, no resistance, no emotion, no visible stance, you're left without a map. It's like trying to control smoke with your bare hands. That's the power of the Sigma. It's not just silence. This disarms threats because manipulation requires emotional traction. If someone's trying to provoke you but you don't react, they lose control. If they try to gauge your position and you give them nothing, they're stuck in the dark. That's unsettling for predators who rely on psychological dominance. They can't dominate what doesn't engage. This behavior is rooted in evolutionary psychology. Signals once meant survival. But in the modern world, over-signaling often leads to exploitation.